Good morning. Somebody told me my videos would be a little better if I wasn't going to be in them, if I at least had something in the background for visual stimulation. So, there you go. Let's have a little quiz. Oh, you're not going to be able to see that. It's the White House. And the questions in the beginning of this are, let's have a little quiz. Who meets there? What do they do there? Do they help you in any way? If your answers were 1, members of the government, 2, they represent all the people living in the country, and 3, yes, they create laws to protect me and my family, then let me congratulate you on getting every last one of those answers wrong. Didn't do too well on that quiz, did you? Okay, let's have another go. When was slavery abolished? Was slavery legal? Are you in debt to a financial institution? Here are the answers. 1, to question number 1, which was who meets there at the White House? The serving officers of a commercial corporation. That was the answer. Number 2, what do they do there? They think up ways to take money and goods from you. Number 3, do they help you in any way? No, absolutely not. They help themselves and not you. 4, slavery has never been abolished, and you yourself are considered to be a slave right now. 5, yes, slavery is legal, although it is not lawful. You need to discover the difference between legal and lawful. 6, no, you are not in debt to any financial institution. Does this seem a little strange to you? If it does, then read on. Those in power have a great big secret. Paying taxes is optional. Registering your vehicle is optional. Paying a fine is optional. Attending a court is optional. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. Surprised? Well, try this on for size. Every mortgage and loan is fully repaid from day one. You can pay it again if you want to, but you don't have to. If nobody has told you that you have a straw man, then this could be a very interesting experience for you. Your straw man was created when you were very young, far too young to know anything about it. But then it was meant to be a secret, as its purpose is to swindle you, and it has been used very effectively to do just that ever since it was created. Perhaps it is about time that you learned about your straw man and how you can stop it being used against you. Knowing about it is the most important first step. You need to go on a journey of discovery, and I'm afraid that what you are about to discover is not very pleasant. However, if you decide to act on what you learn, it could change your life for the better. If you think that you are in debt, then you can get out of it if you are willing to stand up for your rights and refuse to be swindled any longer. Instead, interested? If so, then let's start at the beginning and find out where your straw man came from and why you should care about it. It all started when your parents had a happy event and you entered the world. You don't know exactly when that was because you were not aware of the days of the week. You were not aware of the days of the weeks, the months of the year, or even what year it was. Even after some months had gone by, you still were not aware of these things. But by that time, your straw man had already been created, and it was being used to make some very unscrupulous people rich. None of this was your fault. It happens because your parents were fooled into thinking that they needed to register your birth and get a birth certificate for you. So they applied for a birth certificate, not understanding what would happen when they did. Well then, what did happen? According to the local authorities, they lost ownership of their baby, you, and number two, they allowed a straw man to be created. This is not something which they can be blamed for, as nobody told them it would or even could happen. Nor did anybody tell your parents that a straw man is or how it can be used against their baby. In actual fact, the registration is a contract which is in reality null and void because there was no full disclosure by the local authority, nor was there intent to contract on the part of your parents. This guy's writings are a little bit different than I'm used to reading. The registering of a baby's birth passes ownership of the baby to the local authority, and that alone allows the local authority to take the child away from the parents if they ever want to do that. This applies until the child reaches the age of majority set by the current legal statutes. Doing that is not lawful, but after the birth has been registered, it is legal. And there is a world of difference between those two terms, a difference which it is very important that you come to clearly understand. So what is a straw man? A straw man is a fictitious legal entity created with the hope that as the child grows up, he will be fooled into believing that he is actually the straw man, which he almost definitely is not, and pay all sorts of imaginary costs and liabilities which get attached to the straw man by con artists. How is a straw man created? Well, the mechanism involves that unnecessary birth certificate which the parents imagine is about and belongs to their baby, neither of which is actually true. If the baby has been named James and the family name is Martin, then you wouldn't expect the birth certificate to have the name James Martin printed on it. If that is what is printed on it, then all is well and it is a genuine birth certificate and nothing more. However, if any other name is there, then the document is not a birth certificate, but instead is the creation of the straw man masquerading as James Martin. The alternative entries might be any of the following examples: James Martin, Mr. James Martin, Martin Mr. James, or anything else which is not exactly James Martin and nothing else. Why create a straw man? The answer is, in order to charge the straw man's imaginary cost and penalties and fool the human James Martin into paying those amounts. These imaginary charges include income tax, council tax, inheritance tax, capital gains tax, road tax, import tax, value added tax, fuel levy tax, loan interest, bank charges, and anything else that full-time professional can think up, and are confident that you will not notice that you never agreed to pay and don't need to pay. Legalese. Legalese is a secret language invented to trick you. It uses English words but attaches secret meaning to those words with the sole intention of stopping you from believing that what they are saying to you has nothing to do with the normal meaning in the English language. Their purpose is to cheat you and rob you. For example, they will ask to you, "Do you understand?" In English, that means, "Do you comprehend what I am saying to you?" And the automatic response would be yes, meaning, "I do comprehend what you are saying to me." But these sneaky, underhanded people have changed the meaning of in legalese to mean, "Do you stand under me?" Meaning, do you grant me authority over you so that you have to obey whatever I tell you to do? What makes it even worse is the fact that they will never tell you that they have switched from English to legalese, and if that is not dishonest, underhand, and unscrupulous, then I do not know what it is. If you answer the questions believing that English is being spoken, then they pretend that you are contracting with them to become subordinate to them. Whether or not that is actually true is debatable, because that is effectively a verbal contract between you and them. And for any contract to be valid, there has to be full and open disclosure of all the terms and conditions of the contract, and then unreserved acceptance by both parties. And in these cases, that has most definitely not occurred. But what is the point in all this? Well, this maneuver is intended to trick you into agreeing to represent your straw man. Why? Now that's a good question, but to answer it takes a bit of explaining, and you need to understand the overall situation. All humans are born equal, with complete freedom of choice and action. If you live in the same place as a lot of other people, then there are a few restrictions which have grown up by common consent over time. These restrictions are for your protection and the protection of the people living near you. These restrictions are called the law, or more accurately, common law, and they are few in number and very easy to understand. They are: 1, you must not injure or kill anyone. 2, you must not steal or damage things owned by someone else. 3, you must be honest in your dealings and not swindle anyone. These restrictions have resulted from hundreds of years of disputes which have been with through using common sense and the opinions of ordinary people. They are the only limitations on you, and if you do not want to abide by them, then you need to go to some isolated place and stay away from other people. Many people think that there are hundreds of laws which they have to keep, and new ones every other day. But that is not so. Those other things are called statutes, and keeping them is optional for you, the human, but they are not optional for your fictitious straw man. And that is why the people who benefit from those things want to persuade you to represent your straw man, and so become subject to all their invented restrictions and charges. If you knew that they were optional, would you agree to them? 1, give most of your earnings away in taxes and similar charges. Pay to own a vehicle. Pay to own a television set. Pay to drive on roads which were built with your money. Be forced to join the armed services if you are told to. Send an army which is supposed to represent you into another country to murder innocent people there. Were you ever told that these things are optional? If you agree to represent your straw man, then these things become binding on you. These are some of the statutes which politicians keep inventing in order to make you poor, make them and their friends rich, and keep you in a position where you have to do everything that they say, no matter how much that harms you and does away with your natural freedoms and rights. But say somebody we elect a government says somebody we elect a government to represent us, and so we have to do what they say. After all, they have our best interest at heart, don't they? Well, that is a nice thought, but it is actually true. No, it isn't true. You think that you elect politicians to represent you and your government, but that is not what you actually do. That is part of a very carefully fostered illusion intended to keep you in your place and giving most of your earnings away, typically 80% of all your earnings. Part of the secret is that what is supposed to be, I can't even read this guy's literature. Just the way he writes is killing me here. I'll read this a couple times, maybe even rewrite it, because the way that he bounces around in the pronouns and verbs and adverbs and depictors and descriptors he uses absolutely suck. The book that I'm reading, and this is from the same group that I was reading from before, National Liberty Alliance, but this is clearly somebody else wrote this versus the first one that I've read. and it's hard for me to read this aloud. It just doesn't sound right in my head when I'm reading it. But anyway, I hope you guys have a good morning. And what this was is the nuclear war is what I've got on the screen, just to show the devastating effects of war. People don't understand. If we had Russians or let's just say Chinese paramilitary groups on our soil with little mini embassies all around our country, and they were constantly engaging with the people on the North American continent, how long do you think it would last before a bunch of people got tired of being pushed around and bumped around and seeing these other paramilitary forces walking around in different uniforms on our land before we ourselves would have enough of it? And then you think about how Iran is one of the last countries that has told the central banking system that they can go screw themselves. We're not joining your bullshit. And yet here we are with prepared to go to war with one of the last countries as we talk about openly disarming the American people. The United Nations is now in Utah and New York, and they're talking about taking everybody's guns. They're actually got open invitations for anybody who is willing to train as a paramilitary informant in order to help disarm the American people. And it sure seems like steaming off to war full steam ahead is a great distraction from what they're really doing here. They're domestic terrorists, and we've got foreign people occupying our soil and attempting to disarm the American people because we are the last stand. We are the last fight against totalitarian governments around the world. And the people of the world recognize that. That's why you're always seeing them wave the American flags in other countries and singing the national anthem of the United States of America, is because they're waiting for us to wake up, because we really are such a powerful force, 350 million strong, so many firearms, and not, you call it firearms as a federal term, defensive tactical gear, whatever the hell you want to call it. But we are one of the last people to be untamed as far as being disarmed. And so think about that. The real war should be a war on pedophiles, a war on clean water, a war on renewable energies. We need to have a war that promulgates and brings forth prosperity instead of destruction and death. To be real honest with you, the wars that go on, all they lead to is mass confusion followed by mass manipulation, and the devastating effects of war so often are birth defects, abnormalities within people's living conditions, and we never rebuild anything. We blow the shit out of it, and we never rebuild a damn thing. So it's all a lie. And the only reason the military would be overseas is as an occupier to regulate the minerals that we are stealing. There is no need to be in another man's country. There just is no need to have a military force in any other man's land. Half the people over there, better than 3/4 of the people over there, I would say damn near 90% of those people over there don't even have the financial wherewithal to get over here. So where does a group like ISIS get the funds in order to have military grade ordnance? All right, it just doesn't make any sense, ladies and gentlemen. There are millions of Americans here that work their asses off and never achieve anywhere close to a Fortune 500 company in order to have that kind of military grade ordnance or the financial wherewithal to even think about having something like that. So where are these people who wander around in the desert wearing sheets come up with all this financial wherewithal to all of a sudden create a group like ISIS or Al Qaeda? I mean, what's the name of the next boogeyman going to be? I mean, pin the tail on the donkey. You can come up with just about anything. And here's a trader right here. $1.7 billion cold hard cash Obama sent to Iran. Well, therein lies the answer to where these people are going to get all their weapons that they're going to use to push war. They've got $1.7 billion worth of money that this jackass gave to them. So just think about that for a second. Well, we have a great disarmament movement with the United Nations, Washington, D.C., and Virginia, where the first Civil War actually started. And mind you, the banks financed both sides of that damn war. There was no winner in that war except for King George. So pay attention to what's really going on, because the last thing we need is to involve ourselves in a conflict elsewhere, clear across the ocean, when the true villains, the true deceptive terrorists are right there at the White House. And I think Abe Lincoln said it best. I think he was one that said our country would never be destroyed from the outside because we would be far too great of strength in numbers and far too great with our military superiority to be taken from the outside. But if we were ever going to be taken over, it would be hostilely from the inside, from within. And I think we're seeing that with pedophiles getting off scot-free that obviously run the judiciary. You got Catholic priests that are molesting children. We got CPS that's stealing children at a phenomenal rate. I just read an article this morning, 20,000 missing kids from CPS. They don't even know where the fuck they're at. They're gone. 20,000 kids. That's unreal. That's absolutely asinine. And to think that they have the best interest for anybody's kids when they're incentivized to steal offspring out of people's houses is absolutely grotesque. So if we are to pull together for anything, it's going to be to get rid of these sick psychopaths that continue to feed off the people of the world, not just off North America. And that's the scary thing about this nuclear weaponry. When these psychopaths finally do get run underground because people will be hunting them down, their last option, their last hurrah is going to be taking the rest of mankind with them. Because they're psychopaths with nuclear weapons, and here they are trying to disarm you for having an AR-10, an AR-15, ample ammunition to feed and defend your family. That's absolute asinine. So think about that. Epstein didn't kill himself. Hillary Clinton still runs free. Barack Obama gave $1.8 billion to Iran, cold hard cash. And the banks are currently in such a predicament that they're borrowing hundreds of billions of dollars every night to keep afloat. And they're not telling the American people about it. And now all of a sudden we're going to steam off to war in Iran? Absolutely asinine. And it's just to cover their asses again. And the American people and the people of the world will again foot the bill while the bankers give themselves tens of millions of dollars worth of bonuses for running piss poor operations and monopolies. And the government will steam on with its war machine, as better than 90% of the politicians are all invested very heavily in the military-industrial complex. It's a money-making racket and scheme, ladies and gentlemen. And quite frankly, most of the people around the world are tired of war, they're tired of death, and they're tired of destruction. We should be living in the Jetsons, the era of the Jetsons, where we have plenty of greenhouses, clean food, clean air, and clean water. With the amount that we've spent trying to go into space and on war, this place could have been a utopia. But then again, that isn't promising for the few who would like to steal from you and that profit from your misery. Because war and misery leads to high yields and profits for just a few that happen to be in control of your major conglomerates and corporations. So with that said, have a good morning. I'll read through this a couple times and rewrite it. I don't like the way he wrote it. It makes it hard to read aloud. Thank you for your time.